Hi, everybody. I think we've got my husband, Mike, in the comments section. Can you say hi, Mike? Can you hear us okay?
We don't know that.
He was going to be there. If you're there in the comments section, let us know. This is our very first stream, and my name is Dr. Karis Dillon. I am from Iowa, and I am a PhD in psychology, neuroscience. I enjoy body language, and this is my son, Gabe, who has high functioning autism. Do you want to introduce yourself, Gabe?
My name's Gabe. I play a lot of video games. I've been diagnosed with autism since at a very early childhood.
Yeah. Well, and do you remember when you were a little kid and I taught up at college and I used to drag you up to talk to all the students in my class? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Gabe's been presenting ever since he was real young. And I used to have him do mathematical tests and things like that to show, how incredible you were in those areas. So today's focus is to really kind of dig down deep into, hi, Mike. Did you see his comment?
Yeah.
And I'm glad to see you have the moderator chat there. That is awesome. I want to share with you, Mike, since you're the only one, and we're okay with that. That isn't the button to share. I wonder how I can get items to share.
Edit.
Yeah, let me try. Nope, that's not it. Okay. Well, I'll have a good question for my friends who do lives. So one of the things I want to talk about right away is the statistics concerning autism. Mike, are you getting a good quality of sound from both Gabe and I? Awesome. Good to hear. These statistics concerning autism are really surprising. In the year 2000, autism was found in 1 out of 150 individuals. And now in 2023, it is 1 out of 36. We don't know the direct cause of autism, and that's not really my focus. My focus is on learning about the symptoms of autism, how people manage it, and for those of us that don't have it, how can we be more understanding and compassionate to those who are experiencing it? So I want to ask you right off the bat, do you remember what it was like as a kid to have autism?
Well, probably, I guess it was very high functioning, and then how to explain this? It felt like I was definitely a lot more different than a lot of the other kids, in terms of body functionality, of just more hyper focused kind of.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember what age you noticed that you noticed you felt different from other people around you?
I mean, mainly in schools and whatnot.
Do you remember about what grade you noticed that?
Just very early age, honestly.
How did you feel that students were different from you, or what things did you notice?
More of they're very chatty with a lot of other people, but it's kind of they were kind of distant from me, I guess, maybe in the way I acted. Or
did you understand the things that they were talking about? Did you relate to them?
I couldn't. I wasn't in the conversation, so.
You weren't in the conversation?
No.
So how did you spend most of your time, at reading time, or is that not something you want to talk about?
It's loner thing, so.
Loner? You enjoyed being a loner? Okay. So Gabe, when he was 3 years old, or 2.5 to 3, we had some tonsil issues that came up. We had surgeries that had to be done, adenoids. those types of things. And Gabe was not, he didn't have speech at that point. So we ended up having the surgeries done, and the doctor believed that he would gain speech back very quickly. He did not. And then we started to have him evaluated and tested for every other thing out there. We felt we had a child that was extremely quiet, very hyper aware of organization. He was, even when he played, he would arrange things, or he would like things very neat. And it was just different from other kids that we'd seen. But I'm not so sure that Mike and I were real concerned about it, because you were so intelligent, and we knew you would try to do. Yeah, time was a big issue for him too. And that was one of the things we talked about earlier when we were discussing what we were going to talk about. You said that you always felt like academically that you were really ahead of the game. Is that how you felt?
It was like based on like stories from what you've said I've done. Like when I was a kid, like I would do other people's homework just to get it done quicker or something like that.
Yep. You wanted to move on in the classroom, and the teacher would catch you doing everybody's homework so you could move on. How did that translate? You had a job at Pizza Hut, then you went to Walmart. How did that transfer in the workplace?
It was mainly there was a big difference in skill when it comes to like getting stuff done compared to me and other people. I mean, it's a
Okay.
low paying job, and um,
So go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
it was a low paying job, but like I was the only one that felt like I was doing a lot of besides like managers, like the only one doing like putting in efforts into the work.
Okay.
Another and it felt overwhelming because it felt like besides the managers, I was the only one that was really doing like putting the effort in and actually getting stuff done.
How does that make you feel, or how did that feel emotionally in your head and in your body when you felt like you were working and other people weren't?
It was exhausting, I would say, and like mentally exhausting because for one, I quit both of those jobs because of mental health reasons, and like I worked out like 7 months for the first one, and then a year for the second one, and I was just sick of it.
One of the symptoms of autism is sensory issues. So if I go into Walmart and there's tons of loud noise and people, like kids screaming, my brain kind of just learns to filter it out and just ignore it. Sometimes it irritates me here and there. How's that different for you?
So normally, like for example, like if you're working at Walmart or something, like you'd have people like I was just trying to focus on getting through the day and whatnot, like most people, but like the way I did it, like I just went I went to like I basically just went to go help them do it real quick, move out of there, and
Okay.
just do that quickly while everybody else was trying to do like the generic hi, how can I help you, and the like the normal things that the store would want you to do when dealing with customers.
It's really interesting that you say that, Gabe, because your teachers talked a lot about that too. How you were very into the rules, how you were very into the schedule, and that things needed to follow along with that schedule. And let's say a substitute teacher came in, you didn't like that very much if they didn't act and do kind of like what the teacher had done. Sometimes we would keep you home when you had a substitute because I was worried that you would try to get the substitute to follow, how you wanted things done. Is that kind of like, that seems like it's transferred up into like your working career too?
It's there was like a difference between like I didn't like having to change and whatnot. If I don't go at the normal pace I go, then it's going to be really difficult for me to change that pace just because of another person's
So when you say pace, is that faster or slower?
faster than a normal person, I'd say,
Okay.
because of most people like they have trouble like keeping up with what I do and whatnot because of how fast I can be.
Mhm. You love efficiency, I think.
Yeah.
One of the stories that you told me about Walmart was in your brain, if people had an excess of things like a huge cart of pop, can you finish that story for me that you told me? Or is that you're like, no, I just let it.
I don't remember.
You had counted up that pop in your head when it was in the cart.
It was like a quick counting thing and whatnot. Like I could just take a glance at it, like a 5 second glance, and I could see how many there are. And people were like, the customer there was flabbergasted and whatnot about like, how'd you do that? It's just I counted, and she was like, what? But it's very a lot of the people they get surprised about how some of the stuff I can do like how different it is from the normal worker and whatnot.
You've always had that ability with numbers, with quantities. When you had division and multiplication figured out at 5 years old. There was a chart in your kindergarten classroom, and you figured out that each line that ended, with that number came to that, and you just memorized that whole chart. It was pretty amazing. What has been tough for you, though? You seem to have these incredible abilities in technology and mathematics. What challenges you?
So what it feels like to have autism, it feels like most of it, like your senses and like memory and whatnot, including your emotions and whatnot, are amplified for the good and bad.
Okay.
So like if I get overstimulated, it like a lot of autistic people have a lot of stomach problems and whatnot. That can be due to high anxiety levels, and like it can even eventually get to the point of you wanting, like your body wanting to throw up, even though there's no like any kind of liquid in your system that do that.
Why do you think some people with ASD, which is autism spectrum disorder, why do you think they wear headphones? And do you?
I normally wear headphones to try to keep me calm and whatnot, because like overstimulation from like outside area of like my comfort zone is kind of just like blocks it out so I can focus more.
So I'm hearing that you have auditory sensory issues, like through your ears. Do you have it with sight? If you walk in and there's too much going on at once, bother you or not?
It depends on the situation that it's in. Like if it can.
So let's say you're in a classroom. Do you notice 29 other students shifting and moving, and does that irritate you or not?
Not that. It's more of like a to-do thing kind of that can bug me.
It's more in your head.
So if you look at like a long list of things to do, it would overwhelm me in an instant, even though you're doing it over the course of like 6 months and whatnot. Like it's overwhelming to see how much stuff you have to do, and even though you have time to do it.
So for you, it sounds like it's hard to compartmentalize, or it's hard to manage or only see what you need to have done throughout the day. Sounds like in your head, you start mounting on what you have to have done in weeks versus months.
Like if I'm not limited down to what I can see during that day, then it's hard for me to like compromise how to get all this stuff done, even though I could do like a simple schedule. Like it doesn't help with having that long list of stuff to do.
Okay. So I can see why that would definitely irritate you if somebody else has certain things they need to get done and they don't get it done, because in your brain, you've already compartmentalized that. You know what you have to get done, you time manage, and you get it done.
It's stressful to see kind of like if people aren't keeping up with what they're supposed to do. It's like it's frustrating and whatnot for me. Is I'll explain this.
All right, you're doing great.
Um, it's frustrating to see like if people aren't like normally I would work alone a lot of the time because of if I have to work with other people, then it would like slow me down and not going to that pace again. It's
Do you take on if you work with somebody else, do you take on or feel like you are responsible for their activities?
if I'm part of like a group project, then yeah, it's
Okay.
difficult for me to not see like they have to do their work because it also affects me if they don't do their stuff done.
Have you had any group experiences that have been positive where everybody else takes responsibility for what they're doing?
Not really. Well, because I'm homeschooled most of the time and whatnot, I haven't really had many of those experiences.
So
But
you started homeschooling in what grade?
it was ninth grade in like 2019.
8th grade.
Well, it was like the beginning of ninth grade.
Okay. Yep. So you had 2 years of homeschooling by me, and then you went to K-12 online schooling.
Yeah.
Did you graduate?
Yeah.
That's
From
awesome.
like this past like early in the June.
How'd that feel?
Not really much.
Yeah, I remember getting in the car afterward and I was just elated. Like, I knew the statistics concerning graduation rates for people with ASD. And I had known everything that we had gone through, throughout the years. And it was a celebratory thing for me. And I remember getting in the car and I said, Gabe, how do you feel? And he's like, I feel like I did when I got here. And I'm like, okay, all right.
I didn't really see that big of a like an accomplishment because like I still have to go through like college and whatnot to do that. So maybe
Wow.
maybe at the end of college I might feel like that sense of completeness.
Okay.
But
And that is a symptom of ASD, that rumination of what still has to be done. And I wish I had those slides to show you, because one thing it talked about was the importance of emotional regulation and being able to compartmentalize what you need done within that day versus other things. So, what happens to your brain when you have too many sensory issues coming in or too much expectation on you?
I would get like overstimulated from like those kind of expectations I have on myself, and I would eventually kind of like break down like into this like oversteamed like I would have to like go back into my own room and like try to calm down and whatnot, or like get sleep so I could try to like keep myself stimulated.
Yeah, keep on going. One of the things that's been really different for us, having autism in the family, is that each person with autism is very different. They have some characteristics that are alike. My husband, who has high functioning as well, has some of those sensory issues or the overstimulation. He tends to cope with that with sleeping or kind of playing the same type of video game over and over and over. But I also noticed that, especially when we were early on in the relationship, the unknown is really tough. What does that do to your brain when things have to transition and change?
It feels scary having to, like going into the unknown, like those like transitions and whatnot, because like the like it's like a fear of like like bad things happening, even though like there's not really much there. Uh, like when you're going in, like when I'm going into a job and whatnot, it's just like that fear of like, what if something bad happens, or what if like somebody like comes in for like a shooting, or like any kind of those like bad incidents that can happen or whatnot. It's like, because my brain cannot stop, like if I'm not medicated and whatnot.
And you take an antidepressant, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
But if I'm not like, if I don't have those medications, then I'm gonna have trouble focusing, and like my brain would constantly keep on going through like possible bad things that could happen, and it can be very overwhelming, and like caused another one of those breakdowns and whatnot of overstimulation.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to kind of say, as a parent, I know we're talking about teenagers. Whoops. We're talking about teenagers, and we're talking about young adults, and how ASD presents, with a lot of situations. With children, a lot of times they don't have the language to be able to express when they're feeling overstimulated, or when they're having trouble emotionally regulating themselves. And if I had my, PowerPoint or my little chart here to be able to show you, early on, we did charting with numbers 1 through 5. 5 is like, oh, I feel my body is going crazy. And 1's like, I feel calm. I feel great. I feel like I'm playing video games and I'm in my element. And that's kind of how we kept a look at where Gabe was emotionally. And I think it helped him to regulate. We learned with time to kind of try to build coping mechanisms at 3, at 4, going to his room, and getting away from the sensory issues often helped to bring him back to a 2 or a 1. Today, this isn't something that him and I have talked about yet, but I've been working on a class concerning anxiety and rumination and things. And one of the things inside that class is what's called a mood tracker. And why is it important for you to know where your mood is at?
There's that self-reflection that a lot of people are unable to do, like a self-reflection of themselves, and it's like, for me, I'm always self-reflecting on like how, like, what are my actions doing to others, and how like what I say and what I do would change other people. And it's like even in like a normal conversation, my mind is going through like multiple different things to try to, like, if I'm stressed out, it's like it will go all over the place, and sometimes I can't even get a word out because of that.
Absolutely. And what's hard as a parent is to try to bring plans or coping mechanisms in. So when you're feeling that I'm getting to the extremes, that I have a plan of what to do with that and how to cope with that. Let's talk about that shift that's coming. Got some questions for you. How do you feel about starting college? Are you nervous? Are you excited, or both?
It's mixed feelings and whatnot. Like part of it's wanting to go in there to learn and whatnot, but the other part of it is like the fear of failure and just putting myself in debt without even getting through college and whatnot. And it's like, it's a both in like a good bad kind of sense. But
Do you recognize that there are a lot of people whose brain does not even go to that level? Like, there are people whose brain does not hypothesize danger around every corner. It's a part of our body, it's a part of our nervous system. And people with autism, we don't know why. But it could be a gut issue, like you're talking about, leaky gut issue. I've been fascinated with this individual on TikTok. He is a health and wellness doctor. I didn't say that right, and he'll probably correct me if he ever sees this, but he helps people with food, with supplements to help heal that leaky gut. And I think what it does is it helps people to cope, to have, when you're not feeling well or your body aches or, health problems are coming about, you don't have as much of an ability to deal with a rising set of emotions. So you're right that gut issue, is important. And we'll take a look at that other anxiety stuff. I will leave a link after we get this done. And if you watch this video afterward, I'll give a link to that online class. I'm only charging $5 for it, but it has probably close to 8 hours of different educational material and videos. I'm doing that because I want to get that information out there. You can choose to pay $5 or you can pay whatever you want to contribute. But I promise you, there are more than 25 different ways, coping mechanisms to deal with anxiety. And you already have one of them, a weighted blanket. Can you describe, now I know the science behind it, can you describe how a weighted blanket makes you feel when you're using it?
Mainly kind of like it feels like a comfort kind of like while you sleep and whatnot. Like there is like science done like based on like sleeping positions. Like for example, like a baby's curling sleeping position.
Okay.
If people sleep like that, they're having that feeling of comfort from like a mother and whatnot.
Oh, interesting.
So it's kind of like it feels like a comfort like that, like because like if you have like a normal blanket, it just feels like a soft thing on that, but it feels more comfortable being like embraced in that way.
And my husband has that as well. I actually too, I love weighted blankets. It's supposed to be like, he said he loves his weighted blanket too. And when we got one weighted blanket, we all fought over it. We'd like run into the room and steal it from each other. But it's supposed to compress the system and feel like a hug that hugs the whole body. Temple Grandin, who's a pretty famous individual with autism, created a box that fit around her whole body that she could crank in and it would compress her whole body. And she said it was amazing because it took down her anxiety and stress. One other thing that would be fun for us to do sometime, I don't know, no, I don't think it would freak you out, but flotation tanks. Have you heard of those?
No.
So there's these tanks that you put yourself in and there's salt in the water and you lay there. It's a float tank and you're supposedly, as you relax, your nervous system is not having to pick up all the sensory information that causes anxiety, that causes, you stress, and it's able to relax and put you into a very relaxed state. And some people just swear by it that it helps to relieve their stress for days at a time. What are you most looking forward to with college?
Well, it's more of just like trying to be able to learn that stuff that I'm actually interested in, like going through normal like public schools and whatnot. There was that difficulty of not being able to keep my attention because of lack of interest in it. Like, what am I supposed to use this for in the future? And like a lot of people question that, like when they're going through public school for the first time. But it's like actually having a subject that I'm interested in, like to learn about, then I feel like my attention will be a lot more in it.
Is it hard to listen at all if you're not interested?
Like normally I either get distracted or just like go on my game or like I would go on my game and like it would like it's hard to focus on something like that. Like if I'm not going to use it, then what's the point in listening to it? Like that's what my mind would go to.
Okay.
And I would just like instinctively pick up something else and they just mess around with it.
the twiddle or the what do they call those? The things that fidget spinners, those types of things.
You want to click up?
I'm gonna let the ad run because it'll play later on. Like if somebody watches this later. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Next question. Is there anything specific that worries you about going to college, and how can your dad and I help you deal with the situation?
The main thing I worry about college is one, the financial issues, because there's a main problem in the U.S. with like student debt and whatnot, like going into the hundreds of millions for
Well, thousands.
around that, and then just the failure of just like dropping out or just getting overwhelmed by that kind of uh, like the amount of work you'd get in that.
Yeah. So again, you're hypothesizing kind of a catastrophic outcome. And um, yeah, we're gonna have to get some plans of action and like maybe look at mindfulness and more positive. You ever tried any like a meditative or affirmative meditation that sent it talks you through things and you are confident, you are
No, I haven't really tried that because
okay.
like if somebody is like talking to me like that,
You don't
no,
buy it.
it's I would have to like think of it myself. Otherwise, it's just gonna feel like that usual like cliche kind of
Okay.
thing you get like from movies all the time.
Well, and that's the cool thing about, I am going to put you through my little course because it's going to give you a lot of techniques to help you with the anxiety. And it'll be interesting to see when you come back which ones, are effective and which ones maybe do the opposite for you. Um, what subjects and activities are you passionate about?
Like I said with the safe space, like games and like computer stuff and like collecting, like those feel like a safe space for me, and they feel like they're like a comfort for me, which is why I do them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And
Do you ever challenge yourself to be social? Do you ever challenge yourself to do those things that might increase your anxiety?
not really. It just kind of depends if you put me in that situation. Like, so if I have to drive myself to work or something like that, I kind of have to force myself to do that socialization and whatnot. If I don't have to do it, then I'm not gonna do it.
What's interesting, and your dad and I kind of noted this, every time before you'd go to work, sometimes it would be an hour or two, like flipping of the, like handshaking or leg shaking. And sometimes it was 15 minutes before. What was going on in your head during those times?
Normally, if I go into like a situation like that, like when I'm not medicated and whatnot, it feels like my chest would it would start uh like pumping a lot more, and it
Mhm.
just like I feel like it kicks in the like fight or flight situation kind of
Okay.
like, and I kind
It's hard to get it to stop.
yeah, like unless I'm like half an hour into it, and it's like
Mhm.
it's hard to like focus when all that stuff's going on. Sometimes like it might go on through the entire day, and it's
It sounds uncomfortable.
very uncomfortable.
Do you have panic attacks?
I,
Now, panic attacks are instances where you feel like time has frozen and your heart is beating out of your chest. You feel like you could throw up and you can't see the next 5 minutes in the future. Have you ever had those?
uh, like there's been multiple times in like high stress situations that I have like the first job I had, there was there was a time like where there was like 80 orders on screen at once, and that caused me to be overstimulated.
That would cause anybody to be
No,
overstimulated.
it made me like it started to make me feel dizzy and wanting to
Oh,
throw up, and it's like it felt like I was going to die and whatnot. Like it's very scary for
that is
me.
a panic attack. When you hit that realm of like you don't see a future out of it, that's definitely a panic attack. Wow. Okay, so let's shift it a little bit. Let's talk about some positive. Um, what subjects did we? I think we just did that one. How do you prefer to study and learn?
Well, I kind of have to put myself in a different area. Like if I'm stuck at home, like, oh, go on to this video class, it's kind of hard for me to keep my eye on it when there's like an easy like something else I can do, like something I enjoy doing, is right next to me,
Mhm.
and I kind of have to put myself in a different situation so I can focus on it. So like I kind of have to move to like a different location to do that kind of sort of stuff. But
It's good that you know that.
yeah,
Absolutely.
because like if I'm in the like safe zone and whatnot, like I don't want to. I just want to do the things that I like to do.
Safe zone is your room.
Yeah.
So is your room set up in a way that makes you happy? I don't know if that makes sense. Like if someone went in and rearranged everything, how would you deal with that?
And it would feel uncomfortable and whatnot to kind of have to readjust to that.
Yeah. I used to go into your dad's room. It was really mean, but he had everything so nicely set in his classroom, like very 90-degree angles. And I would like shift something over so it would be angled and I could just feel the tension rise in him. But there's a balance and a comfort that comes from being able to kind of control one's environment. Um, how are you going to support any accommodations that you have? Now, let me finish a little bit or here explain. I'm a teacher at the public school level. I've also taught at the college level. High school students, when they have an issue, will usually have an individualized education plan, which is an IEP. That will involve their parent as well as themselves, teachers, and administrators. And the goal is to give learning objectives or social objectives or emotional objectives and to give it at a slower pace to help that student to be more successful. One of the things that parents become really frustrated by, and there's nothing they can do about it, is at the college level, students have to learn to advocate for themselves, and parents cannot come in with them and get services. So, Gabe and I were talking about today, do you have a plan for services, for advocating for yourself?
Well, one, it would feel like that's kind of like a step I do have to take and whatnot, because eventually, if I do move out, I kind of have to do that stuff for myself.
Mhm.
But at the same time, a lot of the times it feels like if I'm in like a certain moment and whatnot, it's hard for me to think of the future, and it's just kind of like that yes or no situation and whatnot, like that kind of fight or flight kind of thing kicking in.
So, are you saying that I'm trying to think of an instance that might put you into that? I think you and I were talking about conversations or social conversations. You said you prefer to socialize at a 1-to-1 or a 1-to-2 level. And the minute you get a group of students in a room, you back way the heck off.
Because like you have all these people talking and whatnot, and it's kind of hard to get anything in. So I just kind of like shut down, like I'm a conversation. I'll still listen, but I'd I'd kind of like be like in the back area, like nobody like nobody would like see me in the conversation, kind of depending on the people. But
Okay. When you back off, are you creating a semi-temporary safe space?
kind of like it it feels like a let's wait for this. It feels like a lot of the time, like my input or something, it kind of would get invalidated or something if I would try to put it in, and I would like that's why I kind of like back off and do it, because like it's like I don't know what these other people are going to say and whatnot, and it can be kind of scary for me, and I kind of just back off and I don't really put in my input much unless it's like a topic I'm really interested in. But
That might shift at the college level because when you were at the elementary level and the middle school level, you were always talking with a vocabulary that was like fit for more adults. And now you're going to walk into a classroom with more adult like people.
like a lot of the people have trouble like with schools, like public schools, like in dealing with other students there when they're growing up, because none of the students have any kind of like maturity and whatnot. Like they haven't had those experiences and
Mhm.
whatnot. And then you compare that to college, where you have a lot of these full grown people who've went through all of high school and whatnot.
Experiences. Yeah.
Yeah, it's there's a huge difference, and I feel like because of like you putting all those students with like no maturity, you're causing a lot of those like traumatic events, kind of with like people who don't even know what their actions can have effects on.
Yeah, because Europe, I mean, their class sizes are significantly smaller than that in the United States. And that's the big idea behind that. It's socio-emotional learning, but not at a rate where, 30 kids are trying to all gain the attention of the teacher in a short period of time. Where are you going to live during college? You've got 2 years at Kirkwood if you decide to stay there.
Currently, like with current political events and like inflation and whatnot, it's not really a good idea to go out into like a dorm or something and just like rack up on
Student debt.
yeah, and it feels like you kind of like having that safety net behind, like keeping that there with when I
He
get
learned
towards-
that from his parents, by the way.
what
Student debt.
but
You got it.
but like personally, I do not like being in debt to anyone else because like it gets that uncomfortableness of
It's that long-term thing again. Yeah.
It's like, what if I'm not able to pay this back? And like, what if?
Well, and as your mom and dad's in the comment section, we would not want to see you go through that much change in the same period of time. I think down the road, if you're a year in or you finish up and you start a job for a while, we could see that sort of transition, but not all at the same time with all of it. That wouldn't take very, very long before you reach your emotional capacity, I think. How are you going to manage your schedule and organize your tasks?
Well, moving from that one point to another, it helps me kind of like not have that procrastination mindset. Like it kind of forces me to do it. And at the same time, it's also kind of you do things in that moment and whatnot. Like it's hard to see stuff when you're not in that safe space and whatnot, like to see like future events.
Okay.
And
I get you. Yeah. One of the things I asked you today, because I just found it really intriguing with him being such a gamer and a technology expert, I said, do you see yourself as like a electronic planner or a paper planner?
Electronic planner, because like a lot of the stuff is kind of like set in stone onto it, and like with paper you just kind of you can throw it away whenever, kind of.
Absolutely.
And it kind of saves like
space
resources.
And trees, and yeah, that's really important to you for sure. Last question. How can your friends and family who understand your autism be supportive of you in these next 2 years as you go to college?
The only real thing, like I'd have to go and take those kind of steps myself, because eventually when I do move out eventually, like I'm gonna have to do that stuff myself. So kind of having that safety net in case things go wrong, it's kind of the only reassurance kind of thing I can get, because I don't really see like words and that. Like I mainly see like the actions and whatnot, not the words, because a lot of people lie on like the internet, like a lot of misinformation and just kind of greed and whatnot. So it's
like clickbait stuff.
Yeah.
And this is another thing that I've noticed with people that have autism. It is very hard for them to lie, and they have such an emotional reaction if they do lie. I'm sorry, you suck at lying. Like you give it away immediately. What do you feel inside if you try to lie?
Kind of like it's like, why, like what's the point in there like lying to it? And it's kind of like, if I did lie, I would kind of regret kind of a little bit in that moment.
It definitely makes you feel a lot more peaceful inside if you don't.
Yeah.
Definitely. So, any last words of advice to anybody who watches this concerning, like, if they wanted to be a friend or a support system for you, how could they do that?
It goes like with other autistic people, but like it's kind of giving them like what they need and whatnot, but also helping push them into that like new comfort zone so they can grow like any other normal person and whatnot. Because if you coil them too much in that safe space, then you're gonna just get like another like spoiled person and whatnot. That's not really good for like in the long term. So it's kind of, you have to push them into that, but also at the same time you need to let them have that space when they need it and whatnot, like having that good balance between it.
Yeah, and as a mother, I got a lot of criticism from my family. I don't think my friends did, but with how much time I let you be on the technology and the video games. But I recognize that that was about emotional
You
regulation.
can't really have a criticism for a part that you don't really
People love to tell you when you're not parenting the way they think that you should parent. And honestly, I don't listen to it.
it's like if you're not put into that situation yourself, then you don't really get a solid say in that. Like you may get a small opinion, but it's like if if you're not knowledgeable in something, like if you're not knowledgeable in the human body, then I would just suggest listening to the experts and that like
Yeah. I was so impressed with my coworker, who you had shared some of your autism with, when we saw her at graduation. And the first thing she kind of talked about was, I recognize that you're not comfortable with physical contact, so I won't do this, but I'll just say hello. And I was like, oh my gosh, you do not know how much you just gave to you and the Aspies in our family, we call them. But gestures like that are so important. I find that a lot of people want to be supportive of autism, but they like clap and
they do like the average like normal thing you would do for another person and not what the specific person
needs. Yeah. We have a relative that's like, I'm going to hug you just because that's how and it's that hug for them was for them and not for the individual with autism, unless they do like having that. But yeah, there's so much out there and there's so much we have to learn as we go through. The goal of my channel is to bring about the education with mental health and with different types of mental wellness techniques, products, those types of things, to raise empathy toward people that are different or think differently. People with autism are never going to magically be somebody that doesn't have autism. I always figure it's more my issue. If Gabe wants to be back in his room and he finds comfort from being alone, I can't put on him my discomfort with being alone. I love socializing and I get filled up from my YouTube channel friends or my friends here in town. And sometimes I don't always understand how, with you, I have to acknowledge it and be uncomfortable in the fact that I don't always understand it, but I'm empathetic toward it.
just give them their space when they need it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I want to thank you so much for watching this. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the comment section down below, and I will definitely try to answer those. If you have any subjects that you find really interesting and would love to see a live be done with autism, we do have my husband, who is 46, is able to function within the world, but still comes home very exhausted from the stimulation of the real world. He would definitely be willing to talk about his experience with it from a parent perspective and a caregiving perspective for those of you that are parents dealing with autism, I can also present tools for the toolbox and ways to survive through those times, and to deal with the dreams that may not come about, and to alter hopes and objectives and goals. So please leave any and all information. Don't hesitate. I will definitely get back to you. And I thank you so much. Hoping to do more of these in the future. Have a good one. Thank you. Bye-bye.